foreclosures at this time, about 25%. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac hold the paper to about 70% of these loans. People just simply stop paying mortgages. They wait for the foreclosure proceedings, and then they either get refinanced or kicked out, or not. If not, the banks will refinance their mortgages, and then the banks take a loss. But they still receive mortgage payments from this quote-unquote homeowner, providing that this person or persons remain employed. It's dangerous because the banks loaned other money. They've already calculated their returns. They've kind of counted their chickens before they hatched, and they have loaned those chickens to other chicken borrowers, hoping to get back more chickens someday from them. And then money is printed based upon this, that the government forces the banks to circulate because they are in need of it to pay for all their legislation that they mandated that they don't have any way to pay for in cash up front. When you have a bunch like the Omen, who you cannot interpret their actions as anything short of a bunch of people that are creating circumstances that look intentionally designed to bring down the economy. If you analyze it with a binary, two-position on-off, yes-no series of logical questions based on realistic observations that you see, facts you gather, then, based upon the yes or no answer that you come up with regarding each individual question, you could say it's like a trail of dominoes knocking each other down, coming to two dominoes, and which ones are going to knock down, the yes or the no. Depending on which way it goes from there, you come to another conclusion, and this is how to analyze and strategize. In order to prevent its own failure, the bank will package these mortgages together, these toxic assets, and have a bigger bank buy them. They're not supposed to be toxic. Really, the only toxic thing about them is that the value is incalculable. That nobody knows what the stuff's worth, so everybody's afraid to guarantee them. That's why they all end up at the doorstep of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the government-sponsored enterprises who are owned by we the people, so we're told. And that's why Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have so many of these, and that's why the government debt ceiling has been raised in October or November sometime. That's why Barney Frank transferred over to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac the rest of the TARP funds, the second half, and now most of the first half too, and AIG got a little bit of that also. That's pretty much where the TARP fund has gone. The Omen, that's what I like to call Obama and his administration. The Omen is forcing this deal upon the Federal Reserve. They want the Treasury to save. Don't start printing the money yet, Tim Geithner. That's why you don't have no money out there printed with Timmy Geithner's signature on it yet. I'm anxious to see if he signed to Tim, Timmy, or Timothy. Well, he's not printed none of this money yet because they're waiting for 2010, the election campaign season, when they can start spraying this stuff out like a rainbird machine gun cross kind of money spraying gadget. Coming to a town near you, some needless stimulus project, or maybe some needful ones. Mostly built by public works, state employees, largely though private contractors, as long as they can get up to snuff paper-wise and union-wise, of course, because the unions are going to spread and proliferate by way of this, because watch this summer it'll be a resurgence of the card check issue rearing its ugly head, and see the states that don't allow public voting inside companies for the labor unions to seat in will not receive the stimulus money. So there will be big pressure by you, the sheeple, to get that done, get unionized, so you can get your job back. You can have a union job forever that you can't get fired from, and then you can, collect 300% of your salary when you retire at 50, and cause your company to go under like General Motors did, and then get totally bought out by the government, and then hand it over to your labor union, who then we'll sell it to the next sucker. And then you reunionize it. What a bunch of communists you people are, man. The only problem with this whole situation is that the money that they're going to be spitting out has no real worth. No real worth, okay? So the value of the dollar will fall because of this, especially if world currency speculators take note of this, and foreign governments, and they will, and commodities markets, products like steel and coffee and oil. These will all grow higher in value because of this. It'll be one step forward, two steps back. You know, it'll be you earned $1, but you have to pay $2. You know, because the inflation's going to get real bad because of this whole deal. That's why there's a big rush all around the world to buy gold also, because the more gold you got, the more dollars you can print. See, and that goes for the other countries too. Their values are pegged to the U.S. dollar, so the more gold they get, the more of their money they can print that's worth our money, worth more of our money, see. So that's why everybody's in the rush to buy gold right now. The Federal Reserve is just thought by so many of you people to be ominous and sinister because of its secrecy. And that's mostly that way because if they revealed all this instability of the U.S. government and the house of cards that it really is, and the way that the government is actually responsible for printing all this money out of thin air, like all of you think the banks do. Actually, it's the Treasury that does it via the authority of the government, because, you know, people in Congress say, vote for me and I'll get you free this and that. Then you elect them because of, you know, your special interest in their election, and then they go to Capitol Hill and they put together these packages that are so expensive that there's no money for, and so they have to print the money and then tell the banks via the Federal Reserve, which is a private-run organization, right? The government liaison into the Fed, which is actually handling the whole deal, forces the banks to spend this money, to dole it out to all of you and me. I get some of it sometimes. But it's not worth the paper it's printed on. We all know that. The government takes on this debt at a rate that puts all our little mortgages to shame, all right? Just blows it away. But probably a lot of us owe more to the government because of all their stupid programs that we're going to be taxed throughout our lives, in our children's lives, than we actually owe for our houses. Maybe some don't if you're not so good at finance, but I bet you it's at least one of your biggest bills and you never even thought about it that way. The government, the U.S. government, your taxes, which get higher and higher every year because they keep on piling on more and more debt. See, if other countries of the world found out all this crap, or if they knew it for sure, without a doubt, the value of the U.S. dollar would plummet all over the world. See, when the Federal Reserve is supposed to trust that the government will not screw up the economy anymore by creating this money out of thin air, forcing it upon the banks to finance the people, and then the banks have to trust that the government will not enact more silly economic policies that kill jobs and stop payments to the bank for properties and whatnot. Not to mention, you know, the drop in government revenues and tax money that the government receives from taxpayers that are working, which then causes the government to enact newer, still extra, you know, exceptional special emergency legislation to deal with the problem that they've created already, which the banks then again have to finance again, or else they're called by the government people who want this money to be spent. Supposedly that the banks are being greedy. See, that's where they get y'all. That's where they create the class envy. That's why you will never like the banks, because the good government people will always cast them in a dark shadow. See, that's why the banks have to get together in secrecy, because, you know, they have to all keep their cards hidden from each other while they try to keep them hidden from the government also, because they don't trust the government, of course. But they have to suck up to the government because the government could just ram so much legislation down their throats that they just wouldn't be able to stay alive. So it's kind of like being oil dependent on countries that hate us, like Saudi Arabia. Where the good guys are the banks and Saudi Arabia is the U.S. government, okay?